This week, we continue our look at Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, the newest addition to 5e Dungeons & Dragons.
And this week, we're also looking at the Artificer once again with the Armorer subclass.
Support the Dungeon Masters Dojo by heading over to Apple Podcasts and Podchaser and leave a review. Take the time to leave a comment as well. This helps make us more searchable to those listeners interested in content such as ours. But more importantly, we want to know how we are doing and what topics you would like to hear about.
Another way you can support the DMD is by buying the DMD a beer, so we can continue to deliver quality content to you, our listeners. This also helps us upgrade and replace equipment. Head over to buymeacoffee.com/thedmd and buy us a beer, or 3, or 5. Don't forget to say something nice or mean. We don't care. You're buying us a beer. Now on to this week's episode.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Dungeon Masters Dojo podcast. This is a show for game masters and players alike. We hope to bring you tips and tricks to elevate your game and develop the art of dungeon mastery. I'm your host, Louis Aponte, and these are your dungeon masters, Scott Labby and Bill Robotile. Let's enter the dojo and see what they have in store for us today. Gentlemen, so I guess we're talking about the Armorer today?
More Artificers.
I have my hammer and my anvil, and we're ready to go.
Well, let's get into it.
Yeah, let's. I really like the new call to action, and I'm excited about Buy Me a Beer.
I know I'm continuously and constantly thirsty, so I'm hoping someone steps up and buys us a beer.
Me too, because my glass is always half empty. I need it full.
You the pessimist.
Forever the pessimist. Now, just for clarification, you may be listening to that and going, what? You need beer to continue to deliver quality content that me, the listener, is used to? Yeah. That's exactly what we're saying.
Exactly. If by now, after 50-some-odd episodes, you don't realize we drink while we do the podcast.
Hence our explicit rating. This is not a way to go to work, kids, but you know what? It helps after
a long day of work.
Long day of work. And you know what? There's sometimes there's a need for lubrication via libation. Wouldn't you say so, Bill?
That's exactly the term I was thinking of. Because, I mean, when guys get out of work and they go to the bar, they don't sally up there going, boy, I had a hard day. I really need to unwind. Can I have a club soda?
Yeah.
No.
With some vodka in it, please.
Yes. Better.
All right, so let's talk the Armorer. We're back at it with the Artificer.
Yes,
the Artificer seems to be going forever.
It is one of the largest sections of the book. I think it's because it's relatively new-ish, even though they did take it out of the Eberron book. The Armorer, there's parts of this I like. Well, I'm going to say this pretty much every episode we do on Tasha's. There's parts of this I like and parts of it I don't. This one here, he bonds with his armor. It becomes almost like part
skin.
of his skin, like his skin.
Not only that, it removes any requirements from strength if you needed any full plate.
It replaces a limb. If you're missing a limb, the armor automatically replaces it and functions as if it's your limb.
I know a couple characters who could have used that in the past.
Absolutely.
You both looked at me when you said, because I'm the one that lops off limbs on a regular basis.
It's that weird Star Wars thing. You know, everybody's losing a hand or a leg in Star Wars, and at Bill's game,
it is a little more common.
It's got this weird George Lucas fetish thing going on.
I will say I like the spell list that they get.
The spell list, you know, I was looking at the spell list, and that's of course under Armorer spells, but I see a lot of Iron Man like abilities coming from that. You know, I can't help but think of the Artificer shooting magic missiles out of the palm of his hand, and of course, just emitting this thunder wave from his armor that's knocking people prone, kind of like what Sauron was doing in the Lord of the Rings, that big battle in the beginning,
yes.
Where he's whacking the ground with his mace and people are like falling all over the place from the impact. It's got a definite
It has that
Iron
feel.
Man vibe.
Oh, very,
to
very
it.
much vibe. I think all they did was just change the color of the suit, and then said, "Okay, let's slap this in a D&D world."
Yeah, almost like a steampunk version of Iron Man. They get some pretty cool spells. Mirror image and shatter.
At fifth level, that's not too bad.
Yeah, and again with stuff like this, you gotta flavor it. You just don't want I cast Thunderwave through my armor. No, that's terrible. I just can imagine the armor with all these little whistles of steam and spouts of maybe some
multicolored
gas. Yeah, and the grinding of little cogs and wheels producing these effects.
As he leaps out of the second floor window and comes down with the typical superhero landing
And shattering the cobblestones.
and then casting Thunderwave as he lands.
That's how I would do it.
Well, yeah. You were drooling as I was starting to describe this. It's like, yep, Lou's already thought of this.
Yeah, this is sexy talk for Lou at the game table there.
Yes.
This is, but yeah, I mean, also hypnotic pattern, lightning bolt, fire shield, greater invisibility. I like a cloaking device.
Yes. 17 level wall of force.
Yes,
You got a lot of fun with wall.
it's
of force.
a nice little spell list that is it works thematically. It works, and you can have a lot of fun if you just flavor it.
Yeah.
Take the time to do that. I think
Be descriptive, be creative, be imaginative.
Yeah, how does my armor work? Magic? No. Like, what does it sound like when it powers up and you're about to shoot your magic missile or your thunder wave or whatever out of the boots of your armor? What does it look like? What does it smell like?
I was about to say, who downwind is going, oh my God, sulfur, really?
Yeah, like I can almost see the entire suit of armor shaking, before the thunder wave erupts, and just takes people out.
There's a little quiver that starts from the feet and works its way up.
Yeah, and it's like the energy is building and building and building, being confined inside the suit of armor, and then finally it's released, and the armor starts shaking.
How? I mean, is it one of those where he just does that muscle flex and the whole thing just boom and vibrates and then off it goes, or does he slap his hands out in front of him, or does he lift one leg and grin like he's cutting one loose? It's Artificer. You got to expect something like that.
Yeah, or is the armor just almost like a small mech? Like I can see a gnome sitting inside a Goliath-sized suit of armor, and it's almost like it's his Jaeger, from Pacific Rim.
Well, when I was thinking about this, I was thinking about having something like how the Juggernaut's suit is with the helm, except instead of the helm just being covered, I would have it so it slides back. So when I want my face shown, it's there. But then when I want it to go be ready to be full helmet, it just comes slide back over, and it's kind of Juggernaut looking.
Yeah, and that would be cool because you'd see this massive form coming down the street, and then really this juggernaut, and then the helmet would retract, and there'd be this teeny tiny little face in there.
Yeah, because I was thinking about it for Gravin.
Well, at third level, you got the arcane armor.
Yep.
And actually, it even tells you right out there you can retract or deploy the helmet as a bonus action, so you don't have to worry about building it. It's already there. So it's like the little folded up thing where just a collar or however you want to.
Thematically,
you can go a lot of different ways.
If you play it right, I think this would be a fun class to play. Just for thematics, there's some things I don't like about it, like Bill, but there's a lot of things I do like, and I think the reason we don't like it is because our world is different than everybody else's.
And so after the last episode, I did expound quite a bit about how much I do not like this class because of it being so heavily front loaded and so magic heavy. I still doesn't stop me from building it in my head. Right. This would be fun to play in the right world. It's not right for our world.
Exactly. That's what I think.
But this is, like I said, thematically especially, this could be a really, really entertaining class to play. Especially because it even tells you you're learning your armor's abilities as you go.
Yep.
So how do you come about that? I'm going to try this. I'm going to try that. Or, oh, no, and you get into a situation where you have a problem. You roll the die and say, okay, well, I'm at that level. I want this to happen. and all of a sudden one of the other functions of the armor becomes apparent, and it can do that? No one told me it can do that. Hey, guess what I can do now? If you discover it, play out that discovery. Just go, okay, my armor now does this at this level, so I'm going to do this now. It's supposed to be a surprise.
Yeah, or
play it as a surprise.
Or I've been working on
enhancements,
on the schematics, and I think I can do this. And after all this time of research and looking at new metals or whatever,
planning and tinkering, and
this is what I've come up with. It gives you some cool stuff. And Lou mentioned that that lack of a strength requirement for the armor, which is very, very cool, because you could have that science-y, nerdy kind of character that is now maybe they've got like a really low strength, but now they could get themselves inside this machine and do some serious damage. Like there was a superhero in one of the original Alpha flights. It was like Aurora and North Star were the twins. They almost looked like the Wonder Twins. There was Vindicator, Sasquatch, and there was this guy Box. And the Box was like this suit of armor, and the guy's name was like Roger Box, be like OCHS or something. But he was a paraplegic. So he built himself this like suit of armor that he'd sit inside and he'd go around superheroing. And I could see a lot of that being like a theme for this armorer class. Maybe it's someone who is wheelchair bound, or someone who's frail, almost like Raceland from the Dragonlance novels. Just someone who's not hardy in hail,
or the victim of another artificer's experimentation.
Yeah,
right. But also keep in mind, your main attributes for this class is intelligence. So it gives you that chance to, I don't have to worry about that. If you want to play it like that, and your secondary is, I believe, Constitution. So you can work on those two. You really don't need your strength and dex, and this suit allows you to.
It covers that.
Yeah,
covers it. Yeah, to delve into those.
Yeah. It's cool. It can replace missing limbs. So that the thing I like the most about this is someone can portray an aspect of themselves if maybe they're wheelchair bound or something, or they're not, they don't have the use of their limbs, or they're not ambulatory. Someone could portray an aspect of themselves, and it could be very empowering for them to be this armor subclass of the Artificer. And I think that could be like a really like healthy, very like cathartic and therapeutic thing for someone in that situation.
I can see that. Yep.
I would have to say, like, bravo for that, because that opens up a lot of doors.
Yes.
Which I think is a really, really, really good thing. And you can doff or don the armor as an action. So I'm seeing this whole thing like open up, the whole chest or whatever open up, and this little dude kind of getting out of the armor, and it just kind of standing there waiting for him to climb back into the seat again.
I sure wish I had this 7 years ago when I was playing my dwarf, and I couldn't don my armor. I had to go into a full tavern brawl just in my loincloth because I didn't have a chance to put my armor on.
Yeah, sometimes you don't have that extra 10 minutes to put your armor on.
It would not have been as epic.
No, you're right.
An underwear-clad tavern brawl that caught the entire tavern on fire.
Thank goodness not his loincloth.
Very theatrical. Yeah, his boxer briefs.
He was a fighter. They were sports briefs.
Yeah, they lend extra support.
Yes, they do.
You don't want to herniate anything. It's cool, the armor model thing. I don't think it would work for every campaign setting. I think it would stand out like a sore thumb in some, and would just be really out of place.
And that's why I said, you really need to have that talk with your DM, and DM really has to have that talk with you. And Bill, says the same thing all the time. If it doesn't fit, you shouldn't have to expect to play it. Just it's there.
Right.
This is really a conversation you need to have, because it really doesn't fit all homebrew worlds, and even some non-homebrew.
Yeah, it doesn't. And then come up with, a reason why. Like, why would somebody produce a set of armor like this? The first thing that comes to mind would be for, warfare against something that would be otherwise, unbeatable. maybe there's a halfling community or a gnome community that's consistently being attacked or has been enslaved or whatever by a much larger creature with a much more formidable force. And then it's like, okay, how do we level the playing field? Well, I've got an idea. Let's build a gigantic suit of armor that's as big as the bad guys, but has all these magic weapons that we can
strengths and abilities. Yeah, they're out there punching, but hey, let's throw out some lightning out of this thing.
Yeah, it's
or a thunder wave, and we'll put 4 of these out in the front.
Yeah,
and then all the archers and all our other our more conventional weapons. But take all our resources, put 4 of these out front, and see how that happens.
Because I can't help but think that after a certain period of time, the technology would get out, and then the other nations would be like, we need to put these suits of artificer armor out on our battlefield. So now it's this big, like,
it becomes an arms war.
Yeah, and
an arms race. Yeah,
it's like the old BattleTech cartoon, where there's a bunch of robots out there beating the snot out of each other. Or
any incarnation of Gundam.
Yeah. It's Gnomish Gundam or whatever have you. But the customization options here are pretty cool, where you can change the armor's model whenever you finish a short or long rest. How that would work, I don't know. I feel like it'd be kind of a stretch.
Yeah, it's not like there's a giant switch on the back of it. You can just, go from red to blue.
Yeah, it's like what happens? Your tractor trailer truck turns into a giant robot type of thing.
Right.
It does seem like a stretch to me. I can get maybe building multiple suits.
Yeah, I could see if you design it to be a guardian, which gives you thunder gauntlets and defensive field. That's fine. It should stay that way. And you're right. You need another one to be the infiltrator, where you get your lightning launcher, your powered steps, your dampening field. But I don't see just throwing a giant switch and switching your model from one to the other. I think that's too much.
Yeah, it's kind of a little too science fiction-y for me. I think it steps even more outside of. It's more science fiction and less steampunk.
Yeah,
even though it would work in Eberron, and I really think I could have a good time with this in a Spelljammer campaign, because maybe these suits were developed to go up against Illithids or Beholders.
Yeah.
Who are extremely challenging and potent enemies. And if you really want to find out about them, we've done a couple episodes we've done one on Beholders and on Illithids.
We have.
And we even talk about reproduction. So if you were wondering about how that happens.
That often ends up towards the end of every episode we do a lengthy episode about monsters. There's always that the giggity factor.
And it's gross.
Yeah.
In both those
especially
cases.
with Beholders. Yeah, especially with.
So we get these armor models. At 5th level, you get that extra attack, which is nice. So you can attack twice instead of once. And that's great.
Armor modifications at 9th. This is where you really start getting wonky with this thing, because you start infusing you can start using your infusions into your armor, and it doesn't count towards your infusions that you're allowed.
Well, let's clarify that a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, you can. You're correct. You can use your infusions, up to 4 of them on there, but you also get 2 extra ones as long as they are on your armor.
On your armor.
Yeah.
So 2 of them. Yeah.
Yep.
And that's pretty cool. What would you? The first thing that pops out at me would be arcane propulsion armor or armor of magical strength.
Oh, definitely.
That's almost a given. I think
enhanced defense would work pretty well.
Yeah.
The item you need to put it on a suit of armor or a shield. There's a lot of them here that work specifically for enhanced weapon. Will do the same thing. Where was the other one that I spotted that I really thought would...
Helm of Awareness.
That was it.
That's a nice one.
Because you can't be surprised.
Right.
And 6th level, Repulsion Shield. There's another shield, 4 charges, and gives you an armor class bump.
Well, let's take a step back. Think about this one, using a replicate item and create the winged boots.
Yeah.
For flight.
So now you're flying.
Well, yeah, it's armor. It's Iron Man. You got to fly at some point.
And your DM's pissed.
Yes.
Because
DMs never like any player characters
that's
flying.
right. My Eric Kokra armor artificer has now made flying boots. So even in this big metal box, my ass is still flying around. How do you like that? Boy, that upsets a DM.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, they don't like your player characters when your movement, it's flying especially. But even if your movement's extreme on the ground, it makes things difficult. But when you start flying, oh, geez.
Yeah, but, really, I mean, my answer to flying things is bows and arrows. Yeah, or other flying things.
Other flying things, yeah.
So, come on, guys.
Eventually got to land. Make landing difficult.
That's true.
Those wings are going to get tired.
Yeah, so there is a lot of infusions that you can put into armor, and a lot of them specifically say the item is a suit of armor. It's so these are designed to be put on a suit of armor or a shield or something along those lines for protection. So yeah, there's an awful lot of infusions here, and probably a third of them could very easily be incorporated into your armor.
I can't help but think it would be just fun to level up an armorer.
For the player. This has got to be a nightmare for the Game Master.
For the Game Master, I could see it being a headache, but man, it would be fun to just play with the armor and do your thing and level these guys up and be a landing party in a Spelljammer campaign. I would go as far as to paint my armor red. Just to tempt fate.
Of course you would, yeah.
But it would be great. I think it'd be.
No. Ooh, pick me. I'll be the red shirt.
Yeah.
This is for all my brethren that came before me.
So, and on that, actually, let's talk about the perfected armor first. But I want to ask your opinion on something afterwards, both of you guys.
All right.
So you get these extra benefits, based on whatever model of armor that you have.
Yep.
Which are pretty nice. So you get when a huge or smaller creature you can see ends its turn within 30 feet of you, you can use your reaction to magically force the creature to make a strength saving throw against your spell save DC. And that pulling the creature up to 30 feet towards you to an unoccupied space. Get over here. Just
well, exactly. Once it gets within 5 feet.
Not only that, just think about this. If we're in a campaign and your character's in trouble, I can actually pull you away from it, out of danger.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, I mean, you got to really think about what you can do. It's just not, it's not always about the enemy, because I see this armorer more as a defensive player and a field control person than anything else.
Well, that particular ability is under the Guardian.
Yep.
So, yeah, I can see how, he's in trouble or he's not close enough to put, laying of hands or something from my paladin or healing from my cleric. Call the cleric to you on one side and you pull him to 5 feet behind you, and now the cleric has access to him to heal him, and you're standing in front to impose yourself between the enemy and your fallen comrade. Yeah, I could see that.
But then also you can pull the enemy towards you, and that causes a little bit more. I think you get an attack on him.
You do if you get him within 5 feet.
Yep.
I just see it being real theatrical. Stuff you could do. Pull in an ally out of danger while blasting someone with a magic missile.
That's right, because you get 2 attacks if it's your initiative.
Yeah, mm-hmm. and that's that just the cool factor is really, really high. Well,
this whole class, including its subclasses, its cool factors off the charts on this one.
It really is, and it looks like a lot of fun to play.
Yes.
It has no part in our homebrew world. I'm not a huge fan of the class in general, but I would play it.
Yeah.
I would play it just to build the armor.
I'd play it just to torment the Game Master. You.
I don't know if to be honest, I don't know if I would play this particular subclass. There's another subclass I think it's actually a little bit better, and it would probably surprise you both.
Yeah, you're right. It would probably be a surprise because I already think I know which one you are.
No, you don't.
No, I think I know. I'm probably wrong, but I think I know.
It's not the artillerist. I'll just say that.
Then same thing, at the same level as your Guardian with the Perfected Armor, you have your Infiltrator. And any creature that takes lightning damage from the lightning launcher glimmers with magical light until you start your next turn. Hey, fairy fire. The glimmering creature sheds dim light 5 feet radius and has disadvantage on attack rolls against you as the light jolts as if it attacks you. In addition, the next attack against it has advantage, so you've already built an advantage for everyone else because he's lit. Yep. He's advantage to you, and he takes a d6 lightning damage on top of it.
We're going to take this one step further. I lightning jolt the creature. Now he gets this advantage to attack me, and I get advantage to attack him. I get my second attack. At advantage if I hit, the next person behind me now gets advantage to hit that guy. So that's actually more damage because I'm actually dealing twice the damage because I also get the extra attack, the extra lightning damage from my bolt.
There you go.
So now my cleric or whoever that's behind me, my fighter, hopefully, or my thief, can hit them with their advantage attack.
And then your thief comes in with a sneak attack.
Yeah.
And add those extra d6.
Well, you add the action surge for a fighter in there, and
yep.
now, with advantage, you can take enemies down fast.
Yes.
With that, it's a little OP when you think of it that way.
Yeah, I had to actually thought about that. I was like, so I get my first attack, and if I hit, I get advantage to hit him again, which gives somebody else advantage behind me to get their attack. And then if it's the rogue or the barbarian,
yep,
they're going to crush them because they have advantage. I mean, it's highly unlikely that you're not going to hit that creature at that time. And then, it's just all downhill from there.
Keep that in mind, Scott, when you're game mastering.
So my question to you is,
yes,
what kind of game do you see the armorer in? High fantasy, Lord of the Rings, or Shannara type stuff? Certainly not.
No, I actually see something like this when the game you put together that you call the Donnelly Files. That comes to mind for me. It's very early age, a little steampunky with some technology involved in it. That's where I see this at.
The problem is that you're still so overpowered compared to, because that's more League of Extraordinary Gentlemen power level, and this would definitely by far and large outstrip every. So you'd have to put together
in D&D.
It's in D&D. It's going to be tough. It'd have to be, like you said, Eberron. I can see it in Spelljammer. I can see this in Spelljammer.
I would, just to diverge for a moment, when we brought up like the Donnelly Files and stuff, when I met Scott Legault, I met him at Carnage Con, and we were playing this game called Brass and Steel, which was a wonderful game. And I played this guy, Iron Jim, and he built a steampunk Iron Man suit. And I see the armor similarly. I wasn't doing all this fancy stuff because it was very steampunky, but I had a wonderful time playing at his table. It was fantastic. And Scott's a terrific guy. He was nice enough to come on the podcast, and he's a friend of the podcast, and a fine DM. So when the world opens back up again, if you're ever at a convention and you see Scott Legault's name,
play on that table,
yes. And then thank me afterwards because you'll have a really good time. If I was going to have this in my game, and I had everybody at the table playing it except for Bill because he wouldn't be able to because it's my game and I'm the dungeon master and he has to do what I say. But I think I would take a kind of a Terminator approach to it, almost like a post-apocalyptic steampunk fantasy where maybe an alternate universe in Eberron where the Warforged have kind of gone off reservation and formed this big Warforged kind of nation and marched on all the soft bodies and started, wreaking havoc and overthrowing nation after nation. So in response to this, the gnomes built these Jaegers, these suits of armor to go out there and combat the Warforged. So it's this gritty, apocalyptic future of Eberron where, the party is armorers of or maybe even artillerists, but let's just go with armorers because we haven't gotten that far yet.
Yeah.
and they've got their suits of armor, and they're like armor pilots. And there's they have their teams. They're like little squads and stuff they go out with, and the armor has its own name. Like Peace Lily and stuff like that. Four hooves. If it's like a dog-shaped armor or something, and inside are these like little dudes, the gnomes or the halflings, and, the gritty little halflings with, it's such a hard life that the hair on their feet's gray, even though they're like 20. And they smoke cigars, and they got scars and maybe one white eye, and they're just these hard halflings. There's no second breakfast in dystopian Eberron.
There's nothing, just one big bucket of hardtack.
There's
and gravy that's constantly warmed by the engine.
Yeah.
That's what you live on.
Yeah, they're heating jerky up on the engine of their Jaegers, and they're going out there and fighting Warforged. And that's the campaign I would use that in. And I'd have like a really, really good time with that. You can't play though, Bill.
All right.
Because you'll fuck that all up for me.
Yeah, I probably would.
I'll play it.
And Tom can't play either, because I know Tom's going to min-max the shit out of it. He's going to try to pull a fast one on me.
Tom and I will go over there and play Tiger Woods golf on the computer.
That fishing game you have on your Nintendo 64.
We're going to borrow the wife's Wii.
Play tennis.
Come on, Tom, we get to play tennis.
But that's how I would use that. I actually think that would be a blast.
That sounds pretty good. I like that.
To run a game like that. That'd be fun. Maybe I'll let you play, Bill.
Great. Well, later on in the book, we get into the sidekick rules. Guess what? I get to play. I get to be a sidekick.
Bill will play that little scout mech that rides along on the back of Tom's big min-maxed suit of Artificer armor.
As long as I can fly.
Yeah.
Got to piss you off somehow.
Overall impression, I'll tell you, I could have a blast playing this and running the right game. I would have to have a game specifically for this type of thing. I just don't think it would fit in a lot of fantasy settings or the type of fantasy games I like to run.
Yep.
But I think as a one-shot, or maybe something that you popped in and out of every now and again, it would be wicked fun to run a game. Almost like if we were having an normal Eberron campaign. I'm not a big fan of the Eberron world, but it's cool. I'd like to delve into that and play around a little bit.
Yep.
I think, do something like the Star Trek Mirror Universe. The one where Spock had a goatee. That's how you could tell everybody was a bad guy.
Yep,
they have a goatee.
They have goatees.
And just go pop into that Mirror Universe. Introduce it maybe in a game session, and then pull the players out, but then revisit that. This is what's going on here, and here's your team of halfling Jaeger pilots, and name your armor and stuff, and play around with that, kind of like just as to have a good time.
I've already named my mech that I'll never get to play.
What is it?
The Azure Butterfly.
Oh, that's badass. Yeah, the Azure Butterfly. Yeah. Well, all right, we got to do it.
I got a name.
Just because name is awesome. The Azure Butterfly.
You got to let me. I got to be able to build my armor now.
You got to put, and you got to have like the paintings on the side. The
absolutely.
bombers from World War II. Where they had the pinup girls or something like that. Bill's would have this big, an Azure Butterfly naturally, maybe on his thigh.
Oh yeah, well I'd have
a tramp stamp on the armor. Yeah.
There you go. I'm tramp stamping my armor with the Azure Butterfly. Yep. A scantily clad halfling female with wings.
Yeah, there you go.
Got to have the pinup.
Yeah,
as a tramp stamp on my armor. I'm there.
Maybe the pilot's name could be Azure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you put the armor and the little halfling together, and now it's the Azure Butterfly.
That's it.
I don't know. It's happening.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. My
right
name's
before
Azure.
your ears, people.
That's it. The armor's
unfolding.
Armor's name is Butterfly, and I'm Azure, and
you put
between
them together,
the two of us,
it's the Azure Butterfly. So what do you think, Bill?
You're right. I think it all boils down to the campaign setting. Pretty much. If you have the right campaign setting, this would be a blast to play. I do like it. we've said a bunch of times, it's not going to fit everywhere. It's not our world. But like I said, the cool factor on this thing's off the scale because there's so much it can do. I think it'd be a few house rules incorporated here. Just a few things like being able to switch your model armor back and forth. I think that's too much. Pick one or the other, stick with it, or change armor. But don't just throw the big red switch on the side and all of a sudden, boop, you're a different piece of armor. But aside from that, this could be fun. You're right. This could be. I don't see a long campaign out of something like this. This could be overpowering too much too quick, especially as you start developing the armor and as a player, you start figuring out more things. It's going to be a nightmare for the game master. So what is a one-off, 1, 2, 3 sessions, and like I said, revisit now and again maybe? It would be fun to play. It would be fun to play. It'd be fun to build and fun to play.
What do you think, Lou?
I'm still having trouble really liking this one. I mean, thematically, to be Iron Man, that'd be pretty cool. But I guess I'm so used to our world, I really don't. I don't feel this class. I just don't like it.
Well, we played a Marvel game where we played low power superheroes, and I played a gentleman who owned a junkyard and built power armor out of the items he had in his junkyard. Yep. That'd be very similar to this, where it'd be very steampunky. His armor would announce what it was about to do. You'd hear ping, ping, ping. Your lasers are armed. It always announced what it was going to do before it did it. But it was fun because it was thematic. And if the bad guy would go, did it just say lasers? All of a sudden you shoot your lasers. It didn't stop anything. It was just fun to play with. But again, it depends on the world you're building it in. So I played something similar to this in a different world, more modern, obviously. But I could see that I could make the transition pretty easily.
You're going to, on the ride home tonight, now don't lie. You're going to be thinking, what would I name my armor?
No, not for this one.
I'll get a text in the morning.
You might.
And the group text.
We're both looking at you going, you liar. You liar. You're already thinking of it.
Out of all the Artificer classes, though, this is probably my number 3 I would play.
I can't wait to find out what your 1 and your 2 are.
I
don't want to hear it until we get to it.
Not until we get to it.
Wait for it.
Wait for it. And that's Tasha's Cauldron of everything. The Artificer and the subclass, the Armorer. Stay tuned for next week when we look at the Artillerist. That's going to conclude this episode. Thanks for tuning in and listening. Please subscribe to the podcast for more great content. If you'd like to hear a particular topic, you can reach us on Facebook at the Dungeon Masters Dojo, or you can drop us an email at thedungeonmastersdojo@gmail.com. Thank you, and have a good day.